On today's episode of Time About the Movies, we've reached the halfway point of 2013, and it's 4th of July weekend. And what better way to go to celebrate America's independence by going to see the Minions once again on the big screen in Despicable Me 2, or you can go and see Johnny Depp and Armie Hammer and the Lone Ranger, even though Johnny Depp is not the Lone Ranger, but we'll explain on that in a little bit. But we also have Kevin Hart's latest stand-up film, Let Me Explain, and we also have the way back from the writers of The Descendants, Jim Rash and Nat Faxon. We'll take a look at that. Halfway point of the year, July 3rd, 2013. July 5th, 2013. Technically, these movies open on the Wednesday, the 3rd, but it was Friday, the 5th of 2013. So, bottom line, it's Independence Day weekend. This is Time About the Movies. You get the point.
We've been recruited to save the world.
They call me
Stuart.
They call me
Dave.
They call me
Lance.
They call me
Jerry.
They call me
Mark. Phil. Dave. Down there. Kevin. Ugh. He's not Kevin anymore. We need to revisit the number of vacation days you guys get.
Despicable Me 2, rated PG.
And welcome to Time About the Movies. Today we are taking a look at the 4 films that make up July 5th, 2013, 4th of July weekend. But let's get to the movies here. And we're starting off, of course, with one of the biggest hits of the year, Despicable Me 2. This is, of course, a sequel to the 2010 movie that basically launched Universal's Illumination partnership in general. And so it took them 3 years to get a sequel out there. And in this one, you have the return of Gru, voiced by Steve Carell, who's an ex-supervillain adjusting to family life and an attempt at honest living in the jam business. A secret Arctic laboratory is stolen, and the anti-villain league decides it needs an insider's help and recruits Gru in its investigation. Together with the eccentric ABL agent Lucy Wilde, played by Kristen Wiig, Gru concludes that his prime suspect is the presumed dead superhero El Macho, voiced by Benjamin Bratt. There's an interesting little bit of voice history with that character. We'll touch on that in a little bit. Who's his teenage son and is also making the moves on his eldest daughter, Margot. Seemingly blinded by his overprotectiveness of his children and his glowing mutual attraction to Lucy, Gru seems on the wrong track even as his minions are being quickly kidnapped and masked for some malevolent purposes. So yeah, there's a couple things we need to touch on here. One, Kristen Wiig was actually in the first Despicable Me movie as a completely different character, but now she's essentially the love interest for Gru and eventually will become the mother of the family in general. But also, El Macho was originally supposed to be played by Al Pacino. If you watch trailers early on, you see Al Pacino's name in the credits. Like, it was a rare... I think it was actually the first time he was ever going to voice a character in an animated film. However, he dropped out at the last minute. They got Benjamin Bratt instead. A much lesser name, but somebody who's recognizable if you've ever seen him in Law & Order, Miss Congeniality, the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs films. I think it's kind of interesting that they went in that direction overall, because ordinarily, when you get a big star like Al Pacino, you make room for Al Pacino, but maybe they didn't like what they did. Maybe they didn't like what they did with the character in general here. Maybe that's what, because remember, this was also, keep in mind that Al Pacino was also supposed to play Two-Face on Batman the Animated Series back in the day. And then they decided not to do that, and they went with Bull from Night Court, Richard Mull, and needless to say, I think that worked out better for them in that case, but he was fine in this. But I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of the first Despicable Me movie. I touched on it before. I didn't think it was that great of a film overall. I thought it was fun. I think it's delivered what the kids want. It's harmless, but I thought a movie like Megamind was a much better film in general. To me, that was the far superior movie in general, but Despicable Me was the one that went blockbuster crazy all over the world and essentially became Universal's new mascots, pushing Woody Woodpecker into the side like a prom night dumpster baby. But with the sequel, everyone in the world went crazy for it. I mean, they said it was one of the best comedies ever made, one of the best animated films ever made. I mean, some people went as far to say it was the best movie they saw that year, and it was a big blockbuster hit overall. I don't think it got any Oscar nominations, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check here. I don't think it did, because Monsters University didn't get Oscar nominations that year either, and that was a rare thing for Pixar not to get nominated. My computer's being laggy here for some reason. Let me see. Despicable Me 2. Where's the... Oh, it was actually nominated for not just for Best Animated Feature, but Best Original Song for "Happy," which I think that was the song that was nominated for, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I know this is dead air and all that, but let's see, original song. Yeah, "Happy" was nominated for that. It's a good song overall, but yeah, you can a lot of people went gaga crazy for it. I really was not. I will say this. It's a better movie than the first film was. I think it's a good animated movie, but I don't think it's one of the best animated sequels ever made, like everyone claims it out to be. I think the voice acting overall is really good. Once again, Steve Carell is great as Gru. I like the chemistry that he has with Kristen Wiig, who's his love interest in this. You know, Miranda Cosgrove, Elsie Fisher, Dana Gaylor playing Gru's daughters. They're a lot of fun in here. Russell Brand is Dr. Nefario. Benjamin Bratt's pretty good as El Macho. Steve Coogan as Silas Ramsbottom, which one of the big jokes in the marketing was when the minions go, "Bottom." And Steve Coogan's just like, hilarious. Like, I thought that if the first half of it doesn't work, the way he says hilarious, just, that made it work overall. So, I usually hate jokes like that, but they made it funny in the end. But what made this movie work really was the fact that it was mostly the Minions movie, which is funny because this is a movie that's eventually going to lead into the Minions spin-off, which I think is the much better movie in the series in general. I think both the Minions movies are actually much better than the actual Despicable Me movies. I've never really been that big of a fan of the Despicable Me films in general, but the Minions overall, when they have their own movie, they actually made for a lot of good films in general, but the story overall is kind of mediocre. You can kind of figure out where it's going to go. You can predict some of the events that's going to happen. And the comedy is better in here, but I think because the jokes are much fresher and there's more thought and creativity to it, because Universal, I think, gave them a blank check to pretty much do whatever they want because they know this thing's going to make big bucks overall. And not to say the jokes in the first Despicable Me movie were bad, but they were kind of just predictable, lame kids jokes overall. The jokes this time around are much more creative and original and much more funnier this time around. It's definitely a much better movie than the first film was, but it doesn't have quite some of the spark of some of those great animated sequels we've had. We've had some good ones. Shrek 2, Toy Story 2, Kung Fu Panda 2. I mean, we're going to get to some other great ones in the next year or so with Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2 and How to Train Your Dragon 2. This one definitely is not up there overall. I didn't find any major flaws with it overall. I think it's an overall fun time overall. And it's a good animated film that has to do one thing, outdo its predecessor, and I think it did just that. I thought it was a pretty good film, not a classic by any means necessary, but I'll take these early Despicable Me movies over the fourth film, which that's the one where they just completely killed it in the end. That movie was a complete mess, but we'll still at least get one more good movie in the Despicable Me series with Despicable Me 3, as well as the Minions spin-off film coming up in 2 years' time, but yeah, check it out if you haven't seen it already. Despicable Me 2. So let's go ahead and move on to the other blockbuster that came out this weekend that was not a big hit overall. It's Armie Hammer as Disney's The Lone Ranger.
This man killed my brother.
Notorious outlaw.
Good scoundrel. Justice is what a man must take for himself. The men you seek think you are dead. You want me to wear a mask?
He's coming for you.
Let it go.
Johnny Depp. Armie Hammer.
You're dead.
Not yet. The Lone Ranger. Rated PG-13.
Really, you could see the biggest problem with the movie from the get-go. The fact that Johnny Depp has the biggest title over the main character, title character, played by Armie Hammer. It's just like, you can't even let Armie Hammer have the title, have the leading credit on his own movie. You have to let Johnny Depp in there as Tonto. And that's one of the many problems with this movie in general. I've actually rewatched this again today, and mostly because most people said to me, because I always thought this movie was a colossal misfire on so many levels, and, you know, this is what, I mean, it's basically, people just told me it's really not that bad overall. It's not great, but it's definitely a lot better than I think we all gave it credit for. And the biggest problem with the movie really is the main story. It's Tonto's memories of the duo's earliest efforts to subdue local villainy and bring justice to the American West. Again, it's a movie where Tonto is the main character while the Lone Ranger is pushed off to the side. It's the Tom and Jerry movie Lorax conundrum all over again. And yeah, this thing was a huge flop at the box office. It didn't do well. It grossed $260 million off of a budget of $250 million, plus an additional $150 million in marketing costs. So they've lost at least $140 million just on that alone. But is the movie really that bad overall? I've watched it again, and it's still bad, but I see where they're coming from. I see where people say, this actually isn't as bad as they make it out to be. It does have a unique edge to it. It's not something on the levels of a Wild Wild West, which was just this huge, colossal misfire, taking a classic show from back in the day. Or it's not something like Jonah Hex, where Jonah Hex really kind of failed because it was made by people who clearly had no way to bring the source material to life in a good movie in general here. Not good directors, the top cast that they could handle it here. I'll give it this. It's on the same level as something like a Cowboys and Aliens, which we touched on a couple years ago. It's not bad, but you can definitely see where the potential went to. And it just really wasn't there with it. And again, this is around the time when Westerns were not the biggest box office draw in general. To do a big budget Western like this, you really got to come out swinging on this one here. And sadly, this film did not do that whatsoever. But I'll give it credit where credit is due. It's not a bad movie. It's a film where I could see where they were coming from here. I mean, the biggest main flaw of the movie in general is the fact that Johnny Depp is the main character in it, even though he's credited as he's the supporting character in this. And Armie Hammer is fine in here, but the visuals can look okay at times. But other than that, though, there's really nothing about this movie that makes me say it's worth checking out. I'll say it's a better movie than people made it out to be, but still not a great movie either. A mixed opinion, but The Lone Ranger overall I thought was just okay, so.
In theaters, Kevin Hart is Kevin Hart.
I'm at the airport. This girl sees me. She goes off. She was like, oh my God, no, Kevin. I said I was going to see you, and then I see you, and now I'm looking at you.
Kevin Hart, Let Me Explain. Rated R. Now.
So that's from our next movie, Kevin Hart, Let Me Explain, which is a stand-up film that he did when he had a sold-out performance at Madison Square Garden from his 2012 tour of the same name. And for the most part, stand-up comedy films have always been kind of good for me. Original Kings of Comedy, Run Tell Dat, and, I really like Eddie Murphy's Delirious and Rough. So, how does this one fare out? Pretty good, too. I laughed a lot about it. I think Kevin Hart is really funny. I like what he did with Think Like a Man the year before. I thought he was great during the NBA All-Star Game halftime show during 2013. He was on a really good show that really didn't get a whole lot of attention, Real Husbands of Hollywood, which was one of the best shows from 2013, honestly. If there's any problems I have with this movie in particular, it's two things in particular. One is within the film itself, and the other doesn't really have to do anything with the film itself. The first problem, I think, is that the film's opening sequence, which is a scripted scene, and actually not directed by the film's director, it's directly directed by Tim Story, kind of feels unnecessary and doesn't really amount to anything per se. It's just there to kind of be just the introduction to the show in general, which really doesn't feel like it's necessary. At least when they opened it with Eddie Murphy Raw, in the opening bit where you have young Eddie Murphy performing the raunchy stand-up in front of his family, it had a point to it, because it led into the comedy show that you're going to see later on. With this, it felt kind of unnecessary, and you could have honestly just went into it without an opening to begin with. I mean, that's just my personal take on that. But the other problem I had was that it's not even with the film itself, it's just way too short. It's only 75 minutes long. And this is how the opening sequence takes up 15 minutes of the runtime. So the actual concert itself is barely an hour long. Like, that'd be fine if this was on TV, like with the Dave Chappelle stand-up specials, but this is a feature-length, theatrically released concert film that they're doing here, and it's just way too short in general. I mean, the original Kings of Comedy was 2 hours long, and even Eddie Murphy's Raw was just an hour and a half long. And hell, the last one he did, Laugh at My Pain, was an hour and a half too. So I don't know if there was just a longer version that was out there somewhere that we never got, because as far as I know, there isn't a longer extended version of this particular concert film. I could be wrong on that. I have to do my research on that, but with all those problems overall, there's a lot I liked about this movie. This has a lot of good jokes to it. It has probably my favorite Kevin Hart joke of all time.
That means the bitch got to drop on us. My back is against the wall. This is not a test. It's the real deal. Help me. Help me. Nigga. Help me.
Which I am most certainly not going to reenact because of obvious reasons, but yeah, that's one of my favorite Kevin Hart jokes of all time. I mean, just the movement on his hands whenever he's doing the thing, like, that made me laugh a lot when I saw it for the first time, and it still makes me laugh even by today's standards. But This is a good movie. It's really short, but it's not something that really hurts the film overall. Does it need to be on a big screen? No, there could have been a Comedy Central special or straight to DVD, but I still like the movie overall. It is cool to see it on a big screen, and there were people that were laughing when I saw it too, so hey, there's that, so I'll take it. And yeah, it's a good movie overall. Can't recommend it enough. So with all that said, let's go ahead and move on to our last movie that we have here, and that is The Way, Way Back.
This is Peter. Finally, fixed his lazy eye, now it's even worse.
Mom,
Just stare at the bridge of his nose, that's what I do.
you're the worst parent.
Critics are joining the party.
I'm just going like that.
This is so stupid.
And I win.
It's Candyland, Trent.
The Way, Way Back is way, way wonderful.
Party must go on.
It's a summer treat.
It's on. Wow. It's way on.
With something for everybody.
Where have you been all night, young man?
Not now, woman.
The Way, Way Back. Rated PG-13. Now.
So what you get here essentially is a coming-of-age summer dramedy that you kind of expect in the veins of something like a Stand By Me or, you know, an American Pie. I mean, not to the raunchy levels of that movie in particular, but you get the idea with this film here. It stars Liam James as Duncan, who's an introverted 14-year-old who goes on summer vacation to Wareham, Massachusetts, with his mother and her overbearing boyfriend. Stars Steve Carell, Toni Collette, Allison Janney, Anna Sophia Robb, Sam Rockwell, Maya Rudolph, Rob Corddry, Amanda Peet, and it also features the writer and directors Nat Faxon and Jim Rash in supporting roles as well. And this is coming off their success with The Descendants, where they won an Oscar for writing the script for that. And yeah, it's a really damn good movie overall. It's a film that is very familiar. You could tell they took a lot of inspiration from the classic summertime, you know, summer dramas or the summer dramedies of the time period. But it works really well because the cast overall is really good. Liam James is very good in this. There's a great cast that includes an always good performance by Steve Carell, Collette, Rockwell, Janney, Maya Rudolph, Amanda Peet. I mean, there's a lot of good people in this movie in general here. No, it's not going to break any new grounds by any means necessary, but what it does give you in the end is a really good movie that really is very heartfelt, very funny, and shows that these two guys really have a bright future ahead of them as filmmakers, even though I think this is the last thing they directed. I have to double check on that, but I don't think they have directed anything else in particular. But they went back to mostly doing stuff like okay, they did do one movie in particular that was not very successful, and that was Downhill, which featured Will Ferrell and Julia Louis-Dreyfus, but we'll touch on that in 2020. But hey, they at least made one good movie they at least made a couple good movies overall, The Descendants and The Way, Way Back. Two really good films overall. Can't recommend it enough. And thus, with all that said, we wrap up another episode of Time About the Movies. We'll touch on 3 more films next time around, including the sequel that nobody was asking for, Grown Ups 2, Adam Sandler's first official sequel he ever made, and out of all the movies he could have made a sequel to, he picked Grown Ups. Yeah. But we have Guillermo del Toro's latest film, Pacific Rim, and we also have the film that kind of launched Michael B. Jordan as a kind of a leading actor in general with Ryan Coogler's Fruitvale Station. Also starting off his great future, his longest-standing future so far as a good director overall. But we'll touch on those 3 films next time around here on the show. But until then, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go ahead and do me the honors of hitting the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification button. Also, don't forget to check out our playlist, and don't forget to check out the previous episode we did. So with all that said, whether it's in the past, the present, or the future, I will see you at the movies. Take care.